Hi everyone, hi people, hi everybody. You're welcome to the Total Woman podcast. Today, I remain your host, Han Mac, here to discuss everything and anything. I want to start by talking about a particular clip that I came in contact with on Facebook. There's this guy that was talking, and he kept going on and on and on and on and on and on about the founders of different churches. And let's say he gave an example of Oyedepo, Adeboye, and the decrees that they do at the beginning of each year. So, you know how you go to church, for those of you who are Christians, you go to church and they go on about this year is going to favor you. You're going to be the head and not the tail. It's the year of restoration. It's the year of what? And I stand with all the authority in me and I decree that a pillar of fire and a pillar of lights and all that will protect you and all that. But he was buttressing the fact that they have that same advantage that we all have, the pillar of fire, but somehow yet they use armored SUVs. So it's like there's a backup plan, and it's like, except we who are the poor and the needy ones who are at the mercies of what they want to say to us and how they want to deliver it. But we don't have the luxury of the plan B, which is the armored SUV and the securities that protect them, police, mopol, and civil defense people and all that. And he was going on, and he said that, and I think he made a lot of sense. Somebody showed the clip to me, and it made a lot of sense. Not coming from the facts that I want to go against them, that they don't understand all this and what they're saying, it's not necessarily true, but coming from the perspective of the fact that there are other things apart from declarations that make purpose run the way it's supposed to run. There are lots of other things apart from the place of prayer. So priesthood brings you to the place of revelation, where you understand your priesthood. And when I mean priesthood, I don't just mean Christianity. Whatever religion you believe in, from the place of priesthood, from the place of meditation, from the place of understanding the word, whatever comes to you, whatever works for you, from that place you get your revelation and understanding of what you want to do. Chart a course, and it gives you direction. But what then sustains you on that path? There's discipline. What sustains you? Commitment, the consistency. You're showing up daily and regularly. And so if I was to use an example of the church, let's use the Redeem People's Church, right? That's yes, Redeem. That's Oyedepo, I think. Adeboye, sorry. Having a lot of things mixed up this morning. So having him as a person who is, he listens to God, he then hears God, and then he comes and decrees what God is saying. But yet he has a structure that sustains all that God is saying in implementing it. He has this structure that follows everything. So from his office to the head office, from the head office to the various churches as a circular, from various churches and modules of implementation and how it should be implemented, how it should be introduced into the various churches. And nobody's questioning that. So there's a structure, there is order and all that. So when we sit from the place of spiritual, what will I say? How did I put it? Spiritual innuendos, receiving, and then we've learned the jargon. So how are you doing? It is well. You know, what is going on in your life? God has been faithful. To a layman like me, you've actually not said anything. So it's like, I don't even know, if I were to help you, I wouldn't know where to start from, because you've said it is well. You're hungry, it is well. I said, so what exactly are you doing right now? You said the Lord has been helping you. Helping you do what exactly? Which comes into the principle of productivity. The channel in which it comes out. And let me give you, I don't know any other story, because I'm a Christian and I believe thoroughly in the Bible. So I'll give you an example of a Bible story, which is the story of Joseph. He had a lot of dreams. And he had an understanding. As a child, he had a lot of dreams upon dreams that made him hated by a lot of people. But over time, it was recorded that the brothers sold him into, for those of you who are not very serious Christians, you might as well just go and read the Bible and get to know the story, because I'm not here to tell you the story. So, but then I'm paraphrasing and summarizing, all put together. He was this guy that had a lot of dreams, had a lot of visions, and he's just simply shared it on the table, and where his friends and a family and parents all together heard and were beginning to question what exactly was going on with him, because at every point it looked like he was going to be greater than them, and it got to a point where his father had to question, so do you mean that we're all going to serve you? So you see a lot of jealousy and envy and all that, which meant to me that at that point he did not really understand that everybody has a path, and the path does not necessarily collide. So it's basically, or would I say, if putting it mildly, I would say it was about the fact that purpose, but since most of them had not found purpose, he was finding purpose earlier than them and understanding what God wanted to do with him earlier. So it was a threat to those who had not gotten it yet. So it was easy to just oppress him. So it was more of an oppressive environment. That's one. Then over time he went to Potiphar's house. It was his hard work that showed him up to Potiphar. He came in as a slave, but then he became the head of the household of Potiphar. And we putting it in terms now, it's like Potiphar was like a governor at that point. So he was in the governor's household and he was ruling. Was in charge of everything except his wife, of course. He was in charge of everything. So he rose into the position of chief of staff. Even so, it meant that there was an outstanding nature that he carried. He had work ethics, he had commitment, he showed up every day, and he was innovative. He was not the kind of employee that would be waiting for instructions every day. He was creative enough to find ways to make things work regardless of what he had in his hands, which meant that it doesn't matter. Things worked and we'll discuss the problem later, but it has to work first. You see, that kind of creativity, that kind of person compels you to want him around you, because you're sure that at every point nobody will be asking you stupid questions. That's me putting it mildly. You know those questions that drive you crazy? That is like, can you make me a cup of tea? Then the person is asking you, should I boil the water or would I just use the water in the flask? Common sense tells you that you check the flask. If the water is not good enough, not hot enough, you go out and then you reboil that water and get me a cup of tea. All I care about as a person who asks you to give me a cup of tea is that a cup of tea is in front of me. How you get to bring a cup of tea proves your worth and what you always bring to the table. It means that what you should be giving, you should always be found giving. So that was how Joseph showed himself, to the point where, do you understand that Oga's wife found him attractive? He compelled, do you understand? He was giving at every moment. He compelled her attention. He attracted her in more ways than one, which meant intellectually. How do you find your subordinates attractive? Well, we are living in a very degenerative environment right now, so it's very easy. You could just be very loose. But then in that surrounding, then in that time, that season, how do you find your husband's boy attractive when it's your husband's wealth that is sustaining boy? It tells you that there was something about him that commanded respect. There was something about him that compelled you to him, compelled you to favor him. He was just in every aspect outstanding. So you see, he was from a Christian background. He prayed, but he was also taught the necessary tools to live life. He was not shy of doing hard work. He compelled the respect of his subordinates. As chief of staff, he compelled the respect of his subordinates. Why? Because there was nothing he would tell you to do that you could not see him doing on a daily basis. He was showing up on a regular basis. He was showing up every day. So he was teaching them how to do it and how to do it properly. So he was not just sitting down in some office and just drumming out orders and responsibilities for you do this, you do that, you do that. That if I'm saying do this and I'm saying this is not necessarily good, I don't like it this particular way, I'm saying that this I can literally show you how to do it. I don't like this food. I prefer this type of food. I prefer this type of food. Okay, I think as I'm tasting this particular food, I think the spices are a little bit on the high side. Maybe you could down it a little bit. Expertise, that's what we're talking about. How much of what you think you're supposed to be doing do you know? How much foundation do you have in it? Get schooled in it. As a son, he was just a shepherd boy who was following his brothers. He was mostly at home, actually, the favored son. Then he was now sold into slavery, which meant he now learned to work. He now developed a work ethic, which meant that it was regimented. He developed a work ethic in his suffering. It didn't look ideal. It didn't look like the way things were supposed to be, but he developed a work ethic in all of that, which means that for everything that did not work out well, for everything that did not necessarily come out the way you wanted it to come out, it simply meant that there was something you're supposed to be learning, not necessarily what you thought you were supposed to be doing, but there were basic tools to get you to where you were supposed to be going. It doesn't happen in one day. It doesn't just come up all together in one day. But then guess what? You're a step closer every day as you show up, as you're consistent, as you're committed to the cause. But then those challenges come up every day to test your resilience, to test how committed you are to the cause. So you see, it's not enough for you to pray and understand that this is what I need to do. It's not enough to tell God to tell you, you have my backing. You have to show up to know how much backing you have. So then he went forward to go and become the chief of staff, which meant that what he had superseded expectations as a slave. He now came to work in the house of the governor. He had superseded expectation and he had showed himself outstanding above every other person else. Even in the place of service, there is a type of commitment to another person's work that tells everybody else that the day you have yours, you would they should be very afraid of the day you start yours, which automatically commands honor, referrals, different things that could work. The question is, how much do you believe in what you feel called to do? How learned have you decided to become in that sphere? And how willing are you to put yourself out there to prove that indeed this is truly what I'm supposed to do? How then do you command the respect of every other person doing the very same thing? It's in excellence. It's in consistency that you command that kind of respect. Then, taking us further in that same story, he eventually was thrown out because of course, the whole infidelity issue that he was accused of wanting to sleep with his boss's wife. And he was thrown into prison. But guess what? He went into prison and eventually he became the boss in prison, that he was in charge of every other prisoner. Which tells you that when you have already come into those tools that you're developing while all those things are happening in your life and you feel everything is going haywire, it tells you that you're already becoming outstanding. The problem is that you just don't realize it yet. You're becoming better. God is developing something on the inside of you that you don't understand. A stamina is being grown that you don't even get. So you didn't even realize you needed all of that. But then now you have developed it without even realizing it yet. So you're definitely closer than you think. So then he goes on to now begin to interpret dreams. At first, he started from the level of dreaming dreams, having visions. But now, guess what? In showing up daily, he began to develop even the gift that God had given him, which was dreaming, visions, and all that. He had a gift of sight. Now he had a gift of interpretation. He had developed to a point of being able to understand God enough to interpret the dreams. And guess what? He became a consultant. All on the journey of kingship. He learned work, he learned obedience, he learned structure as a slave, he understood serving. So he came into servanthood as a slave, then went in to gain mastery of the land of Egypt itself because he was serving under one of the governors, which means he needed to understand what it meant to be in the corridors of power and the innuendos that go in, to be able to navigate power and authority. All of that on his journey to becoming the prime minister. Then he went on in the prison to understand what now, so that his gifting will showcase him once more. And then the question is that every little challenge that comes automatically deters our productivity because we go into the phase of lamentation. It should not be me. And it's worse for Christians. God, why me? Why me? And you hear people saying very obscene things like, I pay my tithe, I'm a giver, I do offering, and very stupid things that go on to show their ignorance in scripture. So Jesus that came to die for the sins of all Christians. Jesus that came to die, he was the Son of God in heaven. Him that came to die, they don't like him, Abi. Jesus doesn't like him at all. So if he could send his own child to come and die because there was some work that needed to be done, why can't you just wake up and get out of it? And then you want people to gather to tell you how Nigeria is hard. Yes, we all know the economy is hard. So what? Plateau State, there's no work, there's no industries, there's no this. If I was in a place like Abuja or Lagos, so what? You hear people keep on talking about the fact that when life serves you lemons, you make lemonade out of it and you drink happily. Guess what? That's what we're saying. You tough up and wake up out of your slumber. We're saying that you have to get to a point whereby you're so tired of being redundant. You're tired of things remaining how they are. You're completely exhausted of being stuck. You're tired of begging people for money. Let's start from there. Basic necessities, you have to ask from here, ask from there. When you have hands, you have legs, you have mouth, like I'm using now to talk to you. The discovery of you is actually first for you. That you now are able to come into living life in a dimension of fulfillment that you never even expected is first for you. It does a lot for your self-esteem. It does a lot for your confidence. It does a lot to feeding you and taking care of you before it does for others. What you don't have encounter with, you cannot give. You can't give what you don't have. The process is supposed to bring you into confidence in you, confidence in your skills, telling you what you need and gaining mastery in what you have just learned. And it's okay to be in the shadows for a while, but that your excellence will find you out. But you don't get to stop. You don't get to be discouraged. You show up every day. Consistency is what brings you to lamplight. Consistency in doing excellent work. And you have to come into the growth mentality that makes you understand that you have to go big or go home. If it is my work, if I'm the one who has to do this for you, then this is what I have to offer. But if you don't like it, I can't reduce the quality of my work. I can't subsidize standard just to make you feel comfortable. If you will not take it like this, then it's fine. You can go somewhere else. But if you want this work done with me, this is how it has to be done. The compromise daily, we compromise on standards and excellence shows the level of commitment we have to the work and how we understand it in full, which means it takes you back to the place of priesthood to understand these standards. And if taking you back to the Bible, I'm just getting schooled in the Bible, right? I'm feeling like a prophet this morning. So you can actually use the story of Noah to check that out. Because when God spoke to Noah about building an ark, it talked about how many cubits high, how many cubits wide. It gave specifics, which means that in the place of getting direction, God is calling me to be the voice of the voiceless. Where? So you meet a lot of people with a lot of vision and the purpose they think they are doing, and they are just waiting for money. No, you don't need to be the voice of the voiceless with money. You don't need to be a pioneer for orphans, teaching them what to do and what not to do with money. No, find a place and get to work. And guess what? As you get to work, you understand what it truly means to be the voice and understand the tools to get you to be the voice and to do it adequately. There are plenty of things that we use. We do a lot of WhatsApp from morning to night, with Facebook from morning to night, Instagram. Some things that I'm just actually learning to walk around them. But guess what? Some of you are very proficient in all of that. But then speak about it. See, talking is free. Stop empty discussion. Stop gathering around to talk about how, yes, Nigeria is what it is. We can't really help it. What makes what you're trying to establish run smoothly is a structure. And first, you have to, first of all, come in contact with structure. Then begin to structure your own life and pattern it in such a way that all of these things that need to be done, I attend to them diligently on a daily basis. That's how you grow. So he now had come in contact with his own life and now understood what God wanted to him. And I'm talking about Joseph, of course. So now he understood what God really needed of him. And he understood the journey. He understood his process, which takes me to the point whereby we all have a process. Each and every one of us has a process. Identify it, the process. Identify where you are in that process and keep working. My sons are 3. No matter how I believe they are very sharp and they could possibly be doctors because their father is a doctor, I can't simply just push them now at age 3 to medical school. There is a process. So their school, it's ACE, Accelerated Christian Education. So they are now currently, they finished fund class. So now they're going to start learning how to hold a biro and write properly. Do I stop them? No, they already have the deposits, the potential, the makings of becoming what they need to become. But you go to school. That's the process. And when I say go to school, I'm not just reducing it to education. Everything has a dimension of schooling to it, has a little bit of a touch of school, which means that if I'm going to learn commitment, I'm going to have to start showing up and understand the discipline behind commitment and be disciplined enough to keep at it regardless. When I don't feel like it, I still come up to do it. When I don't necessarily when I want to do something differently, what it is, I'm conditioning myself, which is discipline itself, to show up. You think people who show up every day is because they want to show up? You think your pastor likes coming to see your faces every day? No, he doesn't. It's just that he has to. I understand I love to talk, but it's not every day that I want to talk. There are days where I just want to lock myself in my room. But guess what? I show up. I come to talk about the relevant issues. Now that's what it means to be a voice. So get over your complacency and stop looking for people who will throw that pity party around you, which is enablement. Get away from people who enable you to remain a mediocre in whatever you are doing. And I have good news for you. There's something that has been really drumming in my mind is that as a Christian, and we keep giving excuses for not doing what we need to do because of every other thing that is not working, and the people who are supposed to help us are not helping us. Guess back. The only difference is that we get to go back to God. We have that advantage of going back to say, so this didn't work out. It didn't pan out well. So what's the way forward? And you get to get that again. And that's the advantage of priesthood. You get it again and you go forth to conquer. You don't insist. So simply just be a dot in the presence of God and allow him to order your steps. So it didn't work out. So this didn't work out. And that's if you claim that whatever you're doing is truly a purpose, divine purpose from God. You had that epiphany. You had that moment of clarity. You know, his giftings found him out in prison. That's Joseph, of course. I'm going back to Joseph. His giftings found him out. He helped one or two people in prison, and eventually when they guess what? That's the advantage of divine orchestration. You become an answer. You become a solution to a problem. Which takes me back to the fact that if you think your purpose is to just showcase, God raises people to be solutions. You answer a question. And in answering that question, your needs are met. In answering that question, you're taken care of. You become the solution to people's problems. So when the problem came and they needed a solution, they had to now look for a person who could actually answer. And it was not in lack of people who could answer, but there was an expertise. There was extra that was looking for, which means he has walked himself into the extraordinary league. So they had to go to prison. And the most beautiful part about it was that they went to prison. He came out. He did not come out with his sob story. When he came out of prison, the first thing he wanted to do was to go and bath, to shave, to dress appropriately because he could not appear before the king looking haphazard. He was not just come to stand before the king like any other randy human being, but he went, took his bath, dressed the part, and came before the king and went straight to the matter at hand. He was not coming with a pity story. He was not coming with a sob story of I was in the house of this. Guess what? He had graduated. He understood that now he was before the president. So going to talk about my problem with the governor was not important. So he understood opportunity and he knew how to seize the opportunity. When he finished telling them the understanding of all the dreams and all that, he gave them. And he also gave them a strategy on how to do it. And applicable steps. He broke it down to applicable steps on how to get to it. He was so compelling that the president now, but then the king then had to come to a place where he said, it's like, as he looked at all the princes in Egypt, he's like, who will we look for to do all these things you're talking about? It has to be you. Imagine he came presenting himself as somebody who understood who he was, knowing exactly what he carried. So he was delivering with excellence. He was delivering with perfect speech. He was an Israelite. But he was in Egypt, which meant that there was communication, proper communication. He understood the basic innuendos and the do's and the don'ts of the Egyptians. He was flawless because he understood he was supposed to rule in Egypt. He was flawless. He commanded that kind of respect that the president and every other person there knew that nobody else could implement this. It had to be him. And then he had the highest position. He became prime minister. He literally retired the king. The king became a figurehead. And he said, nobody will lift his hand in Egypt without your command. So you who have remained where the only thing you're looking for is maggi and salt, and by that is, I want to eat this, I want to eat this. Since yesterday we've been taking gari. There's a season for gari, or groceries that we might say. There's a season for everything. There's a season where you do all of that, and because you have decided not to eat your tomorrow today, you pay the price. You're willing to grind in the dark until the time of announcement. But you're confident that in grinding and as you come into excellence, it will definitely find you out. So my people, I hope with these few points of mine, you're convinced that productivity is important, that you understand from the place of priesthood, but then you switch into productivity and then you execute with the finance, and that finesse that God has given you and with the tools that you have acquired in your process, and you execute, and execution becomes excellent. And in excellence, everybody, and I mean everyone around you, likes to be associated with excellence. And you thrive. We only thrive in excellence. We flourish in excellence. So do not allow your lack of inconsistency and you being inconsistent, which is what the deterrent of purpose is here. Being inconsistent, you accepting mediocrity, you insisting that it must be a certain way instead of being willing to learn, which is lack of flexibility and holding on to rigidity. Oh Lord, I really wish we could continue talking, but I hope with these few points of mine, you're convinced, not confused, that you should be more intentional about yourself and that you should allow yourself to get to work, get to school, get schooled, learn something new today that would advance you from where you are. So tell me something about what you've learned today and what you're willing to do and step out. Get in contact with us on our social media platforms at the Total Woman Podcast on Facebook and on Instagram. It's been nice doing business with you. We're waiting to hear feedback from you. Peace out.